Welcome back. A group of Democrats led by Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi are calling for President Trump to cancel his upcoming meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin after today's indictments of 12 Russians for election meddling. Now, one of those Democrats is Senator Richard Blumental. The senator joins us now. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Make the case. Why cancel the meeting?
Well, you answered that question, I think, in one of your very first sentences on this show when you said Vladimir Putin ordered this attack on our democracy. Your word, ordered. And the fact of the matter is that it was an act of war. Now, for Donald Trump to meet with this enemy of the United States, he's no friend, he's an adversary and an enemy, and he means us nothing good. It elevates him and legitimizes that attack. What Trump has to do now is hit back and hit back hard and make the Russians pay a price. And there is a tremendous danger of miscalculation. What Donald Trump ought to be doing, instead of meeting with Vladimir Putin, is ordering heightened sanctions, exposing the corruption within the Russian regime for the Russian people to see, and freezing assets and disclosing them here in the United States belonging to those oligarchs and top Russian officials. There are steps we can take.
Well, look, the indictment does just that, right? I mean, this is what, you guys in the law used to call, on the prosecution side, name and shame, right? The practicality of getting these guys is not the highest degree, but you put the names out there, you show what happened. We saw it in Pittsburgh when they named those Chinese hackers. They didn't have a great chance of getting them, but they put the names out there, let it be known what the Chinese state was doing. Why isn't the meeting a win-win from your perspective, that if the president goes and he speaks truth to power the way he says he will, then you get that message sent to Putin in a way that maybe we've never heard it before. And if he doesn't, if he falls short, if he uses those kid gloves that he keeps using where Putin is involved, you win anyway, because he becomes exposed once and for all for not standing up to this man.
There is so much more at stake here, Chris, than just the politics of the moment. We are under attack, not only in the past, but it is continuing. That's the collective wisdom. It's unanimous among the intelligence community. They've said it publicly, so I'm not giving away any classified information as a member of the Armed Services Committee. The attack is continuing, and now is the time to make the Russians pay a price. No more business as usual, no more bromance. The dangers of both courses, his failing to stand up to them and his continuing this kind of infatuated bromance, are really perilous. And to allow him to go into that meeting alone is national security negligence on the part of his advisors and his top staff.
Let me ask you something. How significant is it to you that no Americans were named in this indictment today? I know it doesn't mean that there will be no more indictments. I get that. But they kind of went to great lengths here to not name anybody else, while suggesting that there are people known and unknown, Organization 1, which we all know is WikiLeaks, Company 1, which we know is CrowdStrike. You know, they went to lengths. A person who was talking to Trump's senior staff, who everybody was going to find out was Roger Stone. He played around with it early on, but he even owned it tonight on the show. Why don't you think any Americans are named if they were involved?
That's really a great question, Chris. And quite honestly, nobody but Robert Mueller and his staff knows the real answer to it, but I'll give you my hunch about it. Number one, in order to name people in this indictment, just like every single sentence and allegation in this complaint, there has to be proof beyond a reasonable doubt. The standard is not, gee, this is an interesting fact, or...
Well, that's to convict them. As you know, look, you're a much better lawyer than I ever was. But, just to put it in the indictment, that's not the standard. They could have indicted somebody.
No, Chris, it is the standard, because for a prosecutor, and I was one, a United States attorney, indictment means you need to be able to go to a jury and prove those charges beyond a reasonable doubt.
Right,
you cannot put yourself in the position of making allegations that cannot be proved. But here's another point. This investigation is continuing, and those Americans who were not named but clearly were involved, is more than Roger Stone, there are allusions to other Americans, are put on notice, and the Russians and everybody involved in this investigation is put on notice that there is more to come. And I think that is a very powerful message. He may not have the evidence now to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, but remember, when George Papadopoulos was finally not only indicted, but actually convicted, it was months after he actually entered his plea of guilty. So Robert Mueller is playing by his own strategy and playbook.
But are you a little worried about hanging your hat on the potential that Americans are going to be named for colluding with Russia? And I know colluding is an illegal term, but in part of a conspiracy with Russia to meddle in the election. Because, you know, it's been set up as a standard for a lot of people. It never has been for me. I've always been fighting this conflation fight. Even today, the White House said, here's our takeaway from the indictments. No allegations that any American did anything. No allegations of any staffer. No allegations that the president did anything. You know, this is conflation. This indictment is part of the mainline mandate for the special counsel, which is to find out who did what for Russia. And that's why they named these dozen people. But there's been this conflation. And in fairness, a lot of Democrats are part of this, saying there's going to be collusion. What if there isn't?
The point here is really to better protect our nation. Our national security is at stake because the Russians are continuing to attack us. Robert Mueller is performing a profoundly important public service by following the facts and the law where they lead. And it should be above politics. The spectacle yesterday of the haranguing and harassing a witness before a congressional committee is the opposite of the approach that Robert Mueller is taking. No public statements, just the facts and the law. So we may speculate about conflation and collusion and conspiracy, but what will be revealed at the end is a factual record of the Russian attack on this country, deliberate, direct, destructive, ordered by Vladimir Putin, an act of war.
Thank you, Senator Richard Blumenthal. Thank you for being on the show, especially on a Friday night. Appreciate it, sir.
Thank you.
Don Lemon has no choice on a Friday night but to be on CNN, although he finds a way out of it sometimes. His show's coming up in a few minutes. You know, it's very interesting.
Paying a mortgage, Chris. You know.
I know you are, at least one. The idea of what this means, what we saw today in this indictment, is a really interesting one because it does come on the eve. It's very interesting. I haven't had anybody from the right tonight bring up that the timing was wrongful. Yeah. I thought for sure that was going to be a mainline argument, that this shows Mueller's dirty because he brought it out right before we meet with Putin. Yeah. And, you know, there's some suggestion that the president wanted this to come out. And even though he knew about it, Don, he said, yeah, this meeting's going to be easy with Putin.
Well, he briefed him before he left, right?
Right, but that's some definition of easy. You've got this indictment and all of this heavy weight on you with real facts about what these guys did, and now you're going to the man who may have ordered it all.
Yeah.